I am here with Hannah Zeller from DBSA, the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. She's a program manager there, working a lot on youth initiatives. And we're going to talk a little bit about mood disorders and the issues we have with youth and how the initiatives of DBSA and Hannah's programs are trying to help kids. So thank you so much for your time. I can't make a podcast without people dedicating their time to make content. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gavin. This is fun stuff to talk about.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess we'll get into the beginning. So, a lot of this podcast is about people working on projects or things that give them value. They feel like they're contributing to society, or it has like a theme relates to who they are. So I kind of wonder about your path before getting to DBSA, which for those that don't know, it's a support group for people with depression and bipolar. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about your path to getting to where you are now.
Well, as I was thinking about talking to you today about like how I got there, I think that in and of itself is just interesting to ponder. Like, how do people end up anywhere was kind of the thing that I ended up with after thinking about this today.
Yeah. That's the question. That's what I'm trying to answer.
Yeah. And I think it's such a I love to hear about how people end up in certain places. So I love the premise that we're working with. But
thank you.
Yeah, in my own experience, as I was thinking about this today, I was thinking about a lot of the places my career has gone feels like coincidence, luck, and a whole lot of privilege and advantage that I was in certain right places at the right time. Because my early stuff, like, focused on theater, I focused on art, and it really wasn't until college where I was trying to pick a major. And if anyone has the experience of trying to go to college and trying to see what you're going to spend a buttload of money on that you think might help your career, it's like picking a major is kind of a challenging decision. So I was kind of at this impasse where I was thinking about doing education, but didn't know if that was really for me. And kind of started going through the course catalog of my college. I went to this tiny little school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And found this program called Community Leadership. And it was a unique major to the school that I went to. And the purpose of the major was interdisciplinary, but the purpose was to get people interested in nonprofit work and community organizing. So I read the description and I was like, this might be interesting. And I decided to contact the advisor for the program, Dr. Mike Williams. I was like, can I set up a meeting with you? Can I talk about what this program is like? And walked into his office and sat down, and it was just one of those moments where I felt like I got like a warm hug, metaphorically, because he kind of looked at me and he explained what the program was, that it's about nonprofit work. It's about working with, communities that are underserved. And the way in which that conversation went, I just felt super reassured. So that led me kind of down a path. I also was interested in art history, so I was also doing an art history major as well. And in my mind, sophomore year of college, I was like, okay, art history, community leadership, that's nonprofits. Okay, museum work was my logical conclusion. So I started doing work with the Grand Rapids Art Museum in Michigan, and that taught me a lot just about nonprofits and fundraising specifically. But there was something kind of missing in that. I could tell that, the way in which the work was going, it was more about a certain population, and also the funding systems of that particular museum were interesting, and that's kind of a whole other conversation. So I ended up needing to do an internship my senior year that required me to serve 400 hours. And Mike, the professor, Dr. Mike Williams, was like, you need to work with underserved communities. like get out of the museum. So I was like, yeah, you're right. And I found this ministry in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Heartside Ministry. And it served individuals who were experiencing homelessness, individuals who lived with certain mental health conditions, a lot of, individuals living on, essentially social security supports. But Heartside also had this gallery program where it was an open art gallery. Every day from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., people in the community could come in and make art for free. There was a pottery studio in the basement. There was a woodworking studio. So it was just a way in which, like, I was exposed to a whole new community of people who were definitely experiencing, issues from the systemic level, issues in mental health, issues with homelessness and housing, and engaging with those people and becoming close with that community really kind of changed the path I was on, and led me towards wanting to do other mission driven work and eventually get my master's in social work.
Why does that make you feel good? A lot of people talk about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I donated to a shelter.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's COVID, and I want to go over there and serve food and such, or something. Honestly, it's I think about it as a selfish thing almost. It makes me feel good, and I'm helping other people. I think if people think about it if you're a normal person, hey, you do things that make you feel good, like it would make me feel good. I can't lie. But with COVID, I can't get involved. But what is it about? Like, why do you connect with the underserved? Why not just get a MBA and then go and be in some kind of other field?
Well, I think that's like really what I learned, like in between the museum work and into working at Heartside, was that, yeah, to really fill my soul up, that was the work that really resonated with me. And I think over the years, especially after studying through social work, like in my own perspective, understanding the privileges that I have had and the ways in which I have had so many advantages in terms of, like, I've had free education in both college and my graduate studies. There was a way in which having that opportunity handed to me meant that I needed to give back and serve, or else I don't think I would feel fulfilled. And I think, when you do mission driven work, that is the thing. Like, there's that whole phrase about, like, there's no such thing as like a completely altruistic act or a completely selfless act. And I do think mission driven work, if you are in the position to be able to do it, can fill your soul in a way that other work can't. And so because I was in a position of privilege, I definitely was able to do all the unpaid internships, all the, the many, many hours. Like, I've spent most of my 20s not really having, like a typical career because, I've had internships and all that kind of stuff. And so I was in a place to make those accommodations, and I feel very fortunate for it.
How do you define mission driven, though?
Yeah. Well, and that's another part of my career that I didn't necessarily know that I was going to run into.
Did someone say, like, you need to do mission driven stuff? You're like, what's my mission? I mean,
right.
It sounds like almost like a tactical kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I think I use mission driven as just like a catch-all for nonprofits, but
Yeah.
not all nonprofits are necessarily a place that will fill your soul. And I can tell you that experience because I've worked in nonprofits that really didn't fill my soul, and really I was kind of concerned about how they treated their employees, considering they were mission driven.
Yeah, like I know from people in my family that sometimes you get grants and then it goes in, and nonprofits are a little bit like government. Some parts of government are great, and other parts of government get free money, and then it's kind of like the top is getting paid. So it's important. I mean, especially, DBSA obviously is nonprofit, so you can donate if you like it, but how money is spent and how people are treated, just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean it's good. And I've learned that. And it's crazy.
Unfortunately, the hard way, but
yeah. I've seen it. yeah, so
But that's
yeah.
what was so great when I did eventually walk into DBSA is the day that I walked in, I could pretty much instantly tell just based on the culture, based on the people, that they were a mission-driven organization that walked the walk and talk the talk and walk the walk. You know, they really lived out their values. And I was like, yeah, this is a mental health organization. Obviously, we need to be accommodating to every employee here, you know, who lives with or maybe experiencing something. So I really felt like when I arrived at DBSA, I was finally in a place where yeah, people were actually talking the talk and walking the walk. So that was really,
I
really
I was really impressed by the service because um, I was looking for a support group. I call it AA for depression and plus. And
totally.
so I was like, I need a meeting. You know, if you're in the United States, I need something to go to so I can just sort of air things out and talk because
Yeah.
I was having stressful times. Um, and I found this thing and I said, okay, that's interesting. You know, it's 6:30 p.m., which is a great time. It's on like a Wednesday. So it's not, a lot of things are like Sunday at 10 a.m., and I'm just like, yeah, but a lot of depressed people are just not up, and you go and it's free and you're like, what's the catch? And yeah, I mean, I experienced it firsthand. Um, so yeah, I mean, that was my intro to DBSA. I guess everyone I interview, I kind of know. Um, and it was very helpful for me. And it was funny because I made a small, a small donation, whatever. And Mike, the CEO, when he was in the area, came and had coffee with me. And I'm sitting there like, who am I, right? And this guy's like having coffee. It's just really weird. It was a different thing. So I do really have like a soft spot for DBSA. But I wonder, like, do you relate more to people with mood disorders, or is it just like a great place to be?
Well, you know, that's been a journey for me too. So, you know, I graduated from my undergrad. I did a couple years in some other mission-driven organizations that I didn't love the culture so much. And, you know, fortunately, when I was in grad school, so grad school was 3 years for me because I did it part-time. I also had to do 2 internships during grad school. These were super informative and amazing experiences where in the first internship, I was working with individuals on the west side of Chicago doing case management, kind of outreach, you know, direct therapy work. And in my second year doing internships, I worked in outpatient mental health with children and adults. You know, that was mostly the medicated population. But the fortunate thing that happened was when I was in grad school, I needed a part-time job. And I ended up beginning as a contractor at DBSA, independent contractor in development, because I had that experience. And fortunately, when I was wrapping up my time as a contractor at DBSA, they were hiring a part-time executive assistant. And I was like, awesome, perfect. I want to try to stay at this organization as long as possible because these people are great. They walk the walk and talk the talk. So fortunately, I was able to get that executive assistant position. Now, when I graduated from my social work degree, I really had the idea in my head that I was going to go the clinical route because it was what I was preparing for. Um, but that awesome guy, Michael, that you were talking about earlier, he came on as the CEO of the organization. And I think something that happens in your professional life is you will start working with people and your plans will need to pivot. I think I really, at that point, liked where Michael was leading the organization. And I felt like he was super receptive to just hearing feedback from all kinds of people, you know, I felt like I had a seat at the table at DBSA. I felt like he really cared about my opinions and yeah, and he was a really, really great boss to lead me into the role that I have now. So yeah, I kind of pivoted away from doing clinical because I found a role for myself at DBSA that I was lucky enough to kind of create my own position in tandem with my current boss, Maria, and the CEO. So it's cool organizations like that don't come around often. I realize I have that privilege, but if you ever have the opportunity,
Yeah,
to
I
try
mean,
to create your own job.
I've had I've had time to be able to be selective, right? Not everybody has that, right? And I always emphasize this on this podcast. Like, if you get inspired to start doing art or something on your spare time and you don't have that much time, I think doing something that you connect with will make you feel better. But if you do have the choice, I say great teams. Don't think about great jobs, think about great teams.
Mhm.
Because usually when people think about great jobs, they have a lot of different metrics, but it's really about the team and the environment and the people you're around. And like, just one person being passive aggressive, I mean, consistently, it'll happen. Or there being inequities, or you're obviously seeing somebody got a raise that they just they got it because they gave it to themselves. And you know,
Yeah.
I feel bad for some people in say startups and such, where they're the guy at the top is making huge amounts of money. But a lot of startups are great too, you know, if you have a great team.
Yeah.
So um, but I guess I want to transition to sort of what you're doing now. I think people know about bipolar now, and depression, quite a bit about it. I mean, obviously, it's a mood disorder. It makes things difficult to do, makes, you know, functioning, and it's just like can be a disability, just like anything else, right? Holds you back. But you know, you're working on childhood mood disorders, and you know, kids that are really young. And what do you think, like, the importance of capturing a kid young and getting in and helping parents deal with it, like, then? Because I know people say, well, we don't want to medicate all of our kids, we don't want to put all of our kids, but just dealing with it and making parents aware of it so that we avoid, say, that, you know, common period of 15 to 17 where suicide can happen, or things kick in, and drug addiction and other things. So my long form question there is why is it important, and what is the meaning of helping kids? Like, how do you know even if they have a problem, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing, I think the system that we have so far in mental health doesn't necessarily have a great way of understanding the mental health of children or of even diagnosing. So, um, yeah, I think taking the work that I did when I was doing direct service with kids really kind of helped shape the work that we're doing now at DBSA. And it's super exciting to me because the idea with DBSA's new program, which is the Supporting Youth Mental Health Program, it's a 3-year initiative to provide more resources to children, teens, young adults, and their parents and caregivers. We had this existing program for parents and caregivers to support one another and talk about all the challenges of raising a child that lives with a mood disorder diagnosis. But we didn't have many resources for kids or teens. And so we started really our strategy around kids with our new mood crew, which they're 10 characters, they're all emotion based. There's a happy, a sad, a confident, an angry, etc. And there's all these different activities that parents and clinicians and educators can download to work with kids. And the idea behind this, the idea about early intervention, as you're talking about, it's so important, because what we know about mental health in kids is um, a lot of times onset can happen at a point of a crisis, right? It's a life event that's really triggering or upsetting, whether that's the death in the family or a traumatic incident or just even like a really long, stressful period of time. And we know how stressful the world can be for teens and young adults right now, too. And that also happens around the same time as like this general onset age, like for bipolar is kind of more in the late teens and early 20s. Depression, that can manifest super early in a kid. So when we talk about early intervention, I think it's important to just have the groundwork laid for all of us to just talk about mental health. It's not saying like we necessarily need to diagnose kids younger or necessarily use more medication. That might be appropriate for certain kids. But if we all just have more literacy and more conversations around mental health at a younger age, hopefully, we're not getting to a point where the onset or a moment of crisis is so overwhelming to people. Like mental health is this new thing they have to learn about right then when it happens. Like they've never heard of bipolar before. And then it's not only about educating themselves, but about, having family members understand. And that's a lot for people to go through. So I think the more we can just integrate talking about mental health in general, just as we would talk about physical health, um, yeah, like the better off we're all going to be. And so that's a lot of the goals of what DBSA's programming is about: education,
Yeah.
awareness, and reducing stigma.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot like meditation or any other way that you deal with problems. A lot of people have day-to-day mental issues, and so they do yoga, or they have a few drinks or whatever they do to relax. And for some people it's more intense. And I think parents obviously don't get a manual. Their kid starts doing stuff, and where do they turn? They ask the general doctor, they ask this or that. And I think what Mood Crew does is it sort of gives these characters that sad, angry, happy, whatever, and it allows kids to sort of have a vocabulary, and also for parents to have a vocabulary, because these things aren't, the stigma is sort of dropping away, but it's the ability to have that conversation, I think, is kind of what I learned a little bit from what you're doing. Because I mean, it's just really hard to understand how to talk about it. And nobody wants their kid to be that kid, or this or that. But it's all interrelated. Autism can come with depression can come with this, can come with that. And so do you think it's kind of like about giving parents a vocabulary? It's almost like giving the kids a vocabulary, but also, so the Mood Crew, you get these cards and you point, like, I'm sad, I am this, I am that, and it gives them an opening to have a conversation with their kid.
Yeah.
Because a young kid isn't good at expressing. They're just very angry, or they're breaking things or something, and you want to kind of help them dissect it. At least it looks like.
Yeah, so I think there's so much, like, to all of that, what you're saying. Number one, parents having the vocabulary. And I think any kind of deficit that a parent might have in vocabulary really has to do with the generation in which we're living. And I'm sorry if you hear crying.
No, that's fine.
On the recording, I got a puppy crying behind me.
Oh, that's fine. No, this is casual. I'm not really. I do this for
But just
I'm not like
listeners. That's the crying in the background.
Well, you bring up a good point. Animals. On a side note, I have a cat. She's doing nothing, as she sleeps over there. But I got to say, with, I don't know, just go on that tangent. Animals should be getting gold stars and great food through this crisis. I think they've saved so many people because they're stressed, but then they've got that little dog.
My number one coworker is my puppy Aria, because she's with me all day.
Yeah, it's great. But getting back to what we were saying.
Yeah, it's like parents don't necessarily have the language for it, and that's okay. And I think we need to not like shame or blame ourselves if we are a parent who doesn't have the language for it, because really the parenting ideology from even when I was growing up and the generation before is like, let's not talk about this. We want our kids to be happy all the time. So, let's not address this. Again, that's a really broad statement, and it's like, that's not how everyone was, right? But I do think there's a way in which, as a parent, we don't want our kids to be uncomfortable. So of course it's hard to talk about these things, but it's going to be harder if we keep pushing that under the rug year over year over year, and we don't begin to have authentic conversations about mental health. So I do think we're living in a time period, COVID-19, mental health is on the news. I feel like every hour, like we're in a time where we're talking about it more, which I do think is gonna give us great progress. Was there another question at the beginning of that I didn't answer, Gavin?
No, I think it's what it's interesting that you can sort of, despite whatever your mental condition is, like it's persistent, it's a mood disorder. I think we all sort of have, basically, let's just say we all have similar experiences, okay? But some people have it more intense than others. But giving the kid a way, so generally I think maybe for kids, things are very much in the moment, right? Like, so they feel overwhelmed, but like, what does that mean, right? They feel angry. What are you angry about? I'm angry that, you know, somebody took my toys. Or what are you sad about? What are you this? And so I think kind of like what I see with the Mood Crew and the advantage of it. And I maybe I'll print it out for myself, but the advantage is that like each moment when a kid is feeling something or somebody's feeling something, it's actually like a spectrum of emotions. You know what I mean? And so a kind of part of the vocabulary is like a kid could be, say, they're diagnosed with depression, which means they have more intense, let's say, I wouldn't say I'll just say negative because I don't know, whatever. They're more intense, you know, negative or harsh feelings. But what does that actually mean? Because it's just a title. It's like you have a thing that could be 10 things. So I think, like, what do you think about the importance of somebody, even an adult, when they're auditing, not Scientology, but they're just auditing their thoughts, and they break it down. Like sometimes maybe I'll think, right now I'm just super pissed off, and then I 5 minutes later I think, well, I was angry about work, and I was tired, and I forgot to drink coffee. But these are all kind of like things that fit. Yeah, I got it right here.
Definitely forget to drink
Yeah.
coffee.
So you know what I mean? I think that Mood Crew sort of helps kids and even adults separate things. Do you have, I mean, obviously I think you work with doctors, you work with psychologists, but they're busy. So you're actually putting it into practice and building tools. What do you think about separating out like one period? Your kid looks pissed off or something, right? Your kid is breaking things or acting a certain way, and it's getting out of hand and it's more than usual. Letting them break it down so that way they can express it. Like, how are you feeling today, Billy? They would say, I am sad, angry, but hopeful, or something like this. Is that kind of the goal? Is demystifying what, like, your kid's depressed? No, he's not. He has depression, but he's angry and this and this.
Right. Yeah, we're not. It's a couple of things you're totally touching on. Number one, yeah, we created all the characters as separate. All the characters are rendered kind of like monsters because we didn't want to render them as human because we experience multiple emotions at one time. And if you know, as an adult are thinking, like just as you described, like I was angry because of work, I was a little bit maybe nervous because of a deadline, or what, we're usually a combination of things. So by giving kids and parents the tools to talk about it, yeah, we're going to be identifying more emotions. But I also love what you said. You started talking about my kids throwing things, my kids, whatever. I think Mood Crew, and hopefully we can even expand upon this, really trying to distinguish behavior versus emotion for kids, right? Because emotion might cause some bad behaviors at points, but we don't really want to stigmatize emotion and we don't really want to stigmatize feeling. So, you know, I think we get into a cycle with kids who, you know, maybe are not neurotypical. That's not a term I love, but you know, if kids who are more susceptible to depression, bipolar, anything on the mood spectrum or other mental health conditions, that yeah, their behavior might manifest differently than kids because than other kids because they're thinking about things differently. They have some mood things that maybe are happening. So it's like, how do we separate the emotion regulation piece from the behavior regulation piece? Because often if we don't, I think kids can get so stigmatized. They can start thinking of themselves as a bad kid.
Yeah. I mean,
they're not bad kids.
Yeah.
Potentially they're genius. You know, like Abraham Lincoln lived with depression.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill lived with depression. It's about the environment. A lot of times it's just about making the accommodations so that behavioral challenges don't become too overwhelming or emotional challenges don't become too overwhelming.
Yeah. I sometimes tell people, Google your condition. My friend, somebody I met online, now meeting online, right? But I met has Crohn's disease, and I was like, you know, but he was joking about it because it's a bad condition, but he was joking about like how it is for him. And I was like, oh, let me Google Crohn's disease. And I'm like, oh, that person has it. That person has it. You know, if your kid has depression, your kid is bipolar. I mean, Robin Williams didn't go too deep into it, but basically he was bipolar, to my knowledge. And yeah, I mean, it allowed him to do amazing things, and he was able to deal with it. Eventually he got over it. I don't know if you know about it. He would bike 50 miles a day. He had to do. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
50 a day?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's if you're going, 30 miles an hour, but he was an avid biker at the least. And sure, there's a lot of really successful people. I like Lincoln. Lincoln seems to have everything. What, he had wooden teeth. I don't know. What didn't he? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I wish I was a better historian to Lincoln, but I do know that he lived, that, that he had suicidal ideation. There was, potentially a different way in which America could have gone should Lincoln's depression have been different. And so I think we have to also think that, and this is maybe is my own personal thought, and because I also do suffer with mood stuff. Or live with mood stuff. I don't suffer. Sometimes
I think we all do. I think that's kind of the point.
Sometimes it's an advantage. And I think that's what we need to keep disseminating. People who experience mania, people who experience depression, there are features of having both of those experiences that can make you a more empathetic person, a more creative person, a more, able to think about things in a different way. And so I think if we're able to get a mental health system that's able to support people better and not stigmatize, we could really be, helping people through these time periods and through, trying to facilitate people's gifts, because everyone has them. We just all have a different set of circumstances, advantages and disadvantages, obviously.
Yeah, I had, in general, parents that were attentive. And put in the time, and a lot of it falls on the parents. And people that don't have quality parenting really really are going to struggle, in a lot of ways. And so I always think about that. Oh, well, there's a lot of times I ran out of gas, I was stuck, I didn't have my wallet, called my dad, he was up, he drove up there, gave me the $20, I did a lot of things that he helped with. So, but I wanted to switch back to art. It looks like you, now we've covered those. Looks like you have an art museum on your wall.
I kind of do.
It's still part of your passion, right? It's kind of like your side thing. So
yeah.
What kind of art are you interested in? And
I could do a little demo, but I don't know if I'm supposed to move the camera.
I don't care.
Yeah, so actually, well, I can.
It's more fun if it's interactive.
So having all that time at Heartside Gallery, I'll shout out Sarah Scott.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of art on that wall. Yeah, that's my little gallery wall behind me. I having spent that time doing the art history major, and also working in the gallery with obviously folks who are living through the experience of homelessness. Living with certain mental health conditions. They gifted me a lot of art. I purchased a lot of art. It's why I'm maybe in a little bit of credit card debt right now, to be honest with you. I kind of just went on a tangent when I got to my first apartment, and now I think I have over 100 framed pieces in my house. But what I will say, if people are interested in maybe adding some more art, a lot of the stuff that I have hanging up maybe is something that you might have. Like I frame like magazine covers that I love, or like I'll rip apart art books, to like just frame certain things. So that's been kind of a keeping, that's a intellectual, that's a wellness.
That's a little hack, right? Like you can take a few things that make you feel good and put them in place. We've been doing plants, and I slowly acquire things from garage sales and stuff, and I try to position these are some COVID hacks. I try to position my desk in a way where I have a nice view or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting time, right? Like you want to have something that, when you pass it and you look at it, it just kind of brightens your day. So it seems like the culmination, as we kind of get down here, is you started with art, you were working in a museum, then you wanted to serve, then you got into DBSA because it was a great team. And now you're using art to help youth deal with mood disorders. And it's like somehow you've able to incorporate, and that's kind of what I get at. And like, I really think it's great. Like if
Yeah.
people can find those things that they like and somehow, and it always is like almost random. Like people are just, well, I just found this thing and I got lucky or something, right? Like, which is, it kind of, you just have to keep going, crummy job, boom, I found the one.
Yeah.
But you've taken like both of your interests and like combined them. And I think that must kind of make, what I like to say is it makes work easier. It's still work,
That's true.
but so yeah, I know you have X amount of time. So I just wanted to thank you for your time. And I think it's really interesting. And people that are dealing with depression and issues and hard times, really check out DBSA. I think they have some online support groups and things going on. I'll put the link, dbsaalliance.org. And yeah, hopefully we can build a happier future, starting with the kids. We need to have these conversations.
Yeah, especially now, especially it's, I think people for the first time might be experiencing symptoms of depression for the, living through COVID. We're all in really a challenging time. So yeah, DBSA Alliance, if people want to find out more, we have support groups, programming, wellness tools, advocacy efforts on the whole other side, where our advocacy team is doing awesome stuff at the federal and state level. So yeah, I'm really happy to wind down my weird path and end up where I am. So, yeah.
That's cool. Should we debut the puppy since he had like a good?
My partner just grabbed the puppy to go outside. Can you? Now there's no crying now. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I barely heard anything. Uh, dogs are a lot, but they're a lot of fun. They get you outside. So,
And that's something I so need right now for my own wellness. If I
Did
didn't
you-
have her, I'd have a trouble.
is that your first puppy or?
Yeah, first puppy on my own. I grew up with
Wow.
dogs, but yeah. And so my dog is a German boxer mix, 70 pounds, huge.
Wow. Yeah.
So now I wasn't ready to necessarily raise such a big girl, but
Everything goes up, right? More food, more this, more.
it's so expensive.
Well, congratulations on the puppy. I think that's the best thing. It's your coworker, and I'm sure it gives you 20% more efficiency having somebody there to be positive, right? So.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't talk back, and she just kisses my face.
Exactly
really what I need in a coworker. So it's awesome.
Yeah, my cat's good.
What's your cat's name?
My cat is I can move the camera, right? My cat is Sunshine, and let's see if I can. That's pretty much what she does all day. It just sits here.
Oh, you're so pretty.
So yeah, shout out to Animals for Mental Health, and if you can adopt an animal or something and you can afford it, it really has helped me with all my stress. She's been with me 10 years, and she never leaves. And thank you so much for your time. Have a good rest of your day, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.